Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a video on lane openings and jungle position and jungle timings relative to those openings, and we're also going to be talking about game plans and how having a game plan at the right times inside of a lane can win or lose you the matchup regardless of your mechanics. So for starters, we're going to look at the first wave opening, which is going to be a no auto, simply have immediate wave 1 freeze. The next opening, we're going to take a look at a cheat lane along with a immediate bounce back on wave 3, and then finally we're going to be talking and looking at a bot lane example where we're going to be talking about jungle openings and timers relative to our game plan. Again, I'm not going to be covering any top lane videos or any top lane examples here. However, I will be covering this concept more in depth in the future videos. Anyways, that being said, let's go ahead and get right into it. So for this first example, we're going to go ahead and talk about wave opening 1, which is the immediate freeze, where we actually don't bounce back the lane and we simply have the wave frozen at wave 2. Now here we're playing TF versus Fizz, and this opening is very matchup dependent. You can play this as a mage against champions that lack wave clear and are melee, and so what's going to end up happening is if Fizz opts to auto the first melee inside of the first wave, what's going to end up happening is the wave will push into Dopa, and so Dopa can simply just last hit and freeze the wave around this angle, and then Fizz as a champion cannot break the wave. Champions that can't break waves are any champions that are melee and actually don't have the necessary wave clear to try to bounce back on wave 3. Okay, so as we arrive into lane, you're going to see that red card is thrown out. This is pretty standard in order that so TF can actually get all 3 melees. And as you can see, we are just simply waiting for Fizz to take a last hit, and every last hit he does attempt to take, we go ahead and we attempt to hit him with the card. And you can notice that we're not going to be throwing out red card. We're going to be simply throwing out cards that are single target damage to allow us to constantly keep more red minions than blue minions. And now all we're going to do is, as Fizz attempts to simply hard shove the wave, we're going to begin to level it. And what I mean by level waves is that you're going to try to keep a +2 red side advantage around your area of the lane, and the more red minions there are, the harder the freeze will end up happening, and you can simply level it relative to the proximity of the next incoming wave. Now, as you can see in this little freeze frame here, that there are significantly more red minions than blue minions. So now, in the beginning of the lane, we weren't throwing out red cards. Now we are going to start throwing out red cards, and we are going to start throwing out more AoE damage spells onto the wave, because relative to the proximity of the 4th wave, again, this is the 3rd wave that just came into the clash, that we actually need to level the wave. And if Fizz opts to use his HP and his mana essentially as a buffer to hard shove wave 3 and then reset back down into wave 4, then it becomes a lot harder for us to play wave 5, 6, and 7. However, if we simply level the wave here, keep a slight red side advantage, that we will simply be able to play lane phase in a very safe angle for really the entirety of the lane until we are able to get certain points inside of Q, and we can simply just hard shove and avoid Fizz altogether. So as the lane evolves, we're going to see that Dopa throws out the red card, ends up spacing a little bit too forward, and then gets chunked. Now, this is obviously a pretty big mistake by Dopa. However, what ends up happening is Fizz Qs into Dopa, and so a trade goes off. But this isn't the end of the world, and the reason for this is because if Fizz is not attacking the wave, then what ends up happening is, although TF can take an awkward, disadvantageous trade but from his HP, Fizz doesn't have enough time to kill the blue wave, and if Fizz doesn't kill off Dopa's minions in time, relative to the proximity of the 4th wave, there is going to be trouble for Fizz, as the 4th wave will end up locking. And as you can see, Dopa is simply just leveling the wave, making sure there is a red side advantage inside of the lane, and we can see that very evidently because of how the HP from the 2 cannons were. And as you can see, again, the 4th wave just simply ends up locking, and now we're gonna try to pull out red card again, try to level the wave once again. We know that Fizz doesn't have the mana to actually attack us, and we're gonna simply just pop open potions, and now Fizz is gonna be forced to now kill the 4th wave, which is gonna force him to play the lane extended for even a further duration of time, which then Nidalee, as we can see, is on the left hand side, doing something in top lane, has the ability to then come down and then completely end Fizz's lane phase. Now to simply conclude this wave opening, essentially what's going to end up happening is we are going to retain a freeze inside of the lane, ideally again. This may not happen in this specific scenario, but we do want to ideally retain a wave, not take too much awkward trades, and then we can simply use that freeze to then build up a slow push for levels 4 and 5, and then eventually hard push the entire thing into him as every freeze eventually does turn into a slow push. We can then recall on that and return back at level 6, and again this is when we do end up getting our items, and we can then simply hard shove, and we've successfully dodged the lane phase against Fizz. Okay, so for the next opening, it's going to be again Dopa on Twisted Fate, this time versus Katarina. And I know that you could actually have I know that I discussed the fact that you shouldn't auto level 1 against certain champions, and Katarina does fall into one of those categories. However, this is another way to open the lane, and here actually we are going to auto at level 1 against a melee champion. And what we're essentially going to be doing is, now first of all, if you did get an earlier kill from, let's say for example, like an invade or something, well then you could actually hard shove wave 1 and 2, and you could immediately reset, come back with an item advantage at wave 3. And this is something that we like to call cheating a recall. This is a term that's been, it's been thrown around here and there, so I guess this is the official label that we're going to go ahead and call it. However, we're going to be talking about a different lane opening here, and we're going to go ahead and see and how Dopa actually applies it. So right off the bat, Dopa is just going to simply start autoing against Katarina, not a single minute of downtime. We're just going to immediately, should just be red carding the wave. Oh, hit the wave, get it immediately under tower. And as Katarina uses her Q, we're going to go ahead and try to hit her with an ability. However, no point since there are too many casters, and we simply back off. And again, the second wave ends up arriving, and now what's going to end up happening is we're going to attempt to take this second wave and throw it into the tower. Again, red card, just hard shoving as fast as possible as Katarina comes off of cooldown. And now again, as Katarina is on cooldown, or for in your case any champion that you're versus relative to the scenario, you can evaluate the proximity of the next wave. The third wave is not far away, and the third wave is really close to your tower, and it's coming into the clash, then you can simply hard shove the second wave as fast as possible, because you don't want the third wave to lock. The purpose of this opening is to have the third wave immediately just simply come right into us. And so not hitting Katarina would be the play here, and we're gonna go ahead and just hard shove the wave. Now, if the proximity of the next wave, or the third wave as we would call it here, is further away, and we know that an immediate lock isn't gonna happen, again this is a bounce back on wave 4 as the fourth wave ends up arriving. We are going to be playing the lane somewhere around this angle, and so if the third wave is not far away, and if the third wave is really far away and it's not going to come, and it's not close proximity to the clash, then we can simply attack Katarina, because we know that we have enough time to essentially hit the red wave and throw the wave into the tower. Again, we're just looking to auto, get the wave under the tower, not a second of downtime, and as the next wave is arriving, we're simply going to last hit it. And this is going to allow us to play the lane in an angle where we're gonna be pretty much immortal to any jungle ganks, and at this point we can throw out a gold card or a blue card and it wouldn't matter. Anything but a red card would be completely fine against Katarina, not the wave. And as you can see, Dopa is simply but last hitting the wave as it comes into us. Unfortunately, doesn't ward, doesn't respect the fact that Olaf is on the left hand side, does eventually end up ghosting in and seems to have lost his summoner there, but that is okay, because again there is a red side advantage. As you can see that there are relative to the proximity of the fourth wave, because the fourth wave is going to meet closer to the clash, so it's going to come back into Dopa. And so what's going to end up happening is you're going to immediately get a wave 3, wave 4 bounce back played around your angle. Unfortunately, Katarina does all in Dopa, and it doesn't seem like it's going to go his way. However, in your games, you're not going to do that, and you're going to be able to get a really good lane state in a really decent early timing inside of the lane. And this is really good against champions like Olaf, against champions like Rek'Sai, against any champion that does really thrive off of the early game pressure and has really decent angles against you. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the last example. It's going to be a bot lane example, and it's going to be divided into 2 parts. We're going to be doing Uzi's Vayne with Morgana versus the Lucian and Volibear, an example that I've shown in the past, and this time I just want to talk about how wave manipulation relative to jungle openings can actually either win or lose you a lane. as you can see, we are looking to push, but not push too hard, because level 2 is we do want to essentially all in at level 2, and so we do want to push, but obviously not to the point where the opponent is under tower. However, after level 2 has been taken, then the wave manipulation can actually be manipulated in different ways. And so you can see that Uzi is getting level 2, does end up killing the first wave, kills the second wave, and now as the third wave locks, now you want to essentially look at the proximity of the next wave along with the jungler. Now, let's say, for example, that the enemy jungler takes a left side opening, which means that eventually, by the time, in about a few seconds, the opponent jungler should be back onto the right-hand side of the map, and so you are susceptible to a gank as an ADC/support. And so, taking trades against Lucian and Volibear, and even if they're advantageous, does not give you value unless the proximity of the fourth wave is not close enough to the point where it ends up locking. And so instead of trading against Lucian and Volibear, and let's say the opponent jungler has started on the left hand side, we want to actually hard push the wave. Now, the only time, you don't do this, let me go ahead and just rephrase it a little bit slowly, is when the fourth wave is not anywhere near the clash. The clash is where the two minion waves essentially line up. And as you can see, as Uzi plays out this lane, we're going to see exactly how his lane state and his poor manipulation of the wave actually ends up getting him killed. As you can see, a trade does end up occurring, and you can see the fourth wave arriving really soon, and you can see that Morgana is not autoing the wave, and the fourth wave ends up locking. This is now where a jungler could potentially attack you, and this is also at the same wave where Volibear as an all-in support, and you can substitute Volibear for really any champion, Leona, Nautilus, Alistar. These champions that thrive at level 3 can all in a squishy bot lane like Morgana and Vayne because of the space between the towers and where the lane is being played. Now, let's say, for example, that there is a right side opening from the jungler, and obviously, let's say that a level 2 is not possible, and you do actually end up getting wards. Then what ends up happening is, because you know that the enemy jungler is going to essentially start on the right-hand side and end on the left-hand side, you can simply hard shove the fourth wave and the fifth wave, and you can bounce back at a lot longer time relative to what happens on the left-hand side of the map. Now, obviously, if, for example, I don't know, Nunu or something in top lane as the enemy jungler shows and has 16 CS, well, you know that he has essentially 4 camps done, which equivalent to 16 CS, and so we can count that, assume that there's still camps available on his left side jungle, which then essentially means that he still has time, and relative to the time that he's going to take to kill his left side camps, you can actually manipulate the wave, and you can keep on pushing, and then you can eventually get the bounce back when Nunu or whatever jungler you're up against does transition back onto the right hand side of the map. As the lane evolves, we're going to see that Uzi does manage to shove the next wave into the tower, and it seems like trades are just going off relative to the minions, and we're just going to go ahead and get a ward here. Very basic stuff. I've gone over this VOD before in previous coaching sessions, if you've checked that out before. Morgana does end up dying, and here eventually you're going to also see that Uzi ends up dying. Now, as Lucian and Volibear, you've essentially won the lane, and not necessarily because you ended up getting a kill, but because you have a really good lane state in the next few minutes of the game. Let's assume that the enemy jungler started on the right-hand side, so Lucian's jungler. And so, relative to what happens on the left-hand side of the map, and let's assume that nothing happens, Lucian could actually shove this wave in, and then get a bounce back on the, not this minion, but the next minion wave that comes out of the Nexus. And so, the lane state is going to be played somewhere here, and it's going to be favorable for Lucian and Volibear, and again, it's going to prompt a gank, because at the same time this is happening, the opponent jungler will be back onto the right-hand side. So, really, you could have the best mechanics in the world, but if your wave management is poor, whether that be in bot lane or whether that be in mid lane, and you aren't going into lane with the game plan, then you will end up losing the lane despite your mechanics. That's it for the video. Thank you guys for tuning in, and again, if you have any questions, you can always join our Discord. You can ask them there. You can also get a free coach from the Discord, and always appreciate a like and subscribe for support. And if you have any other questions or you just want to see more coaching, you can always tune into my Twitch stream which I usually stream on the weekends, and I usually do pop-up streams throughout the week at twitch.tv/zencoaching. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you for the next video.